As speculation grows over what will happen to the government of Venezuela, its gold reserves, and investors in the country's oil resources, there has been lots of misinformation readily spread by those in the mainstream media. RT's Sara Montes de Oca joins me to explain. Sara, you have a story of fake news that the Chinese government called out.
Scotty, on Tuesday, the Wall Street Journal reported that Chinese diplomats were holding talks with Venezuela's opposition leader and self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido. Now, this would have been a very significant development since China is one of Venezuela's leading creditors and, along with Russia, one of the key proponents of not interfering in Venezuela's domestic politics. But according to China, that report is fake news.
The relevant report is untrue. It is false information. For your question, I would like to say that recently, certain media kept churning out false news. I don't know what their true intention. We hope relevant media will follow the principle of objectiveness and fairness when doing stories. Speaking of current issues on Venezuela, we call for a political settlement through dialogue.
The Wall Street Journal had reported that Chinese diplomats concerned about protecting their country's investments held talks in Washington with Juan Guaido's representatives. Now, 3 weeks ago, Guaido invoked a constitutional provision to assume the presidency, arguing that Maduro's 2018 re-election was a sham. The Wall Street Journal wrote, "The talks are a sign of the apprehensions building with creditors of Venezuela's leftist government." Guaido has indeed publicly extended an olive branch to China and Russia and told Reuters in an interview last month that a change in Venezuela's government would favor the country's two main foreign creditors. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, and China is the world's biggest oil importer. Now, Beijing has been a key lender to Caracas. They've lent the Latin American country over $50 billion in a series of cash for oil agreements. Now, the categorical denial from Beijing that talks with Guaido's team took place perhaps indicates China's unwillingness to abandon Maduro's government just yet. Meanwhile, after Tuesday's renewed warning to its allies that the U.S. may be forced to scale back operations in Europe and other countries to continue doing business with Chinese tech giant Huawei, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson hit back with some pretty harsh comments today. He claimed the U.S. is acting without any solid evidence.
The nature of that is to only use its state power to suppress the legitimate development rights and interests of Chinese enterprises is political, which is using political means to intervene in the economy. We believe that this is very hypocritical, unfair, and immoral. So far on the issue of security, neither the United States nor a small group of its allies have come up with any conclusive evidence that Huawei poses a threat to their national security. Their excuse is nothing more than concerns about China's national intelligence law.
She repeated that the Chinese government requires Chinese companies to comply with local laws and regulations when doing business with other countries. Now, Scotty, one of Huawei's chairman, Eric Xu, is really questioning U.S. motives and going as far as to point out that some say that when other countries use Huawei equipment, it makes it harder for U.S. intelligence to conduct surveillance in those countries. Now, he says this is a factor that could potentially be motivating Washington's animosity toward Huawei.
Sara, how are European countries or any other countries that are allies of the U.S. reacting to Pompeo's threat to they need to stop selling Huawei phones?
Well, Prime Minister of Luxembourg came out today and said that they needed to get all their facts straight before making a decision whether or not they're going to build up and continue to sell Huawei products and go into the 5G network with them. So he wants all facts on the table before making a final decision.
It's interesting that other countries would even want to get involved in this fight between these two powerhouses. Thanks for joining us, Sara.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.